name is Jackie Berge, and I'm here today to talk with you guys a little bit about my internship experiences this semester. And I do have someone helping me record this video, so what I'm going to have him do is read me the questions that you posed to me via your email, and I'm just going to respond so I can tell you guys a little bit about what I went through this semester.
All right, question 1. Describe the company.
Well, I worked for the Walt Disney Company, specifically the Walt Disney World Resort, which is in Orlando, Florida. The Disney Company is comprised of several different branches, but specifically Walt Disney World is a theme park resort area. There's over 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, a retail and entertainment district, and over 22 resort hotels. And there's over 66,000 people or cast members who work for the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida.
Tell me a little bit about your responsibilities and duties.
Sure. I worked as a guest relations hostess at Walt Disney World, and guest relations is a really important area of the Walt Disney World Resort. It's a little bit of its history is that it started when Disneyland opened in 1951, and there was a department created because Walt Disney knew that there were going to be some guests who needed a little bit extra help to enjoy their vacation just as much as they thought they wanted to. So the guest relations area is here to help sell tickets, help guests with any questions they have about the resort, about the Orlando area, about the Disney company, and specifically it helps with guest recovery situations. So anything where a guest experienced something that was less than their expectation or is having an immediate problem where they need some assistance, they're all sent to a guest relations location where we can help them. And so that's what I did.
To whom did you report?
Well, I was at Downtown Disney, so I reported to 6 of the Downtown Disney guest relations guest service managers. My specific leader, or they call it homeroom manager, was Rob Carras, who was a great mentor for me because he actually started with the Walt Disney Company as a college program participant, as I did 2 years ago, and then he immediately went into the field of guest relations, which is where I am now. So he is an inspirational guy who outshares my passion for guest service and making people happy, so it was great getting to work with him, and he is who you will see did my service evaluation also.
What did a typical day look like for you?
Well, I was an intern, which usually meant that I closed on a daily basis, so I would arrive at work at around 3 p.m. and I would immediately get a fund. Now, as a guest relations hostess, we were required to wear a specific costume, which was a blue bottoms, either a skirt or pants, and I wore a plaid vest, which is a symbol of guest relations throughout the Walt Disney theme park resort company. And so I would go to work and I would get a fund or a bank or money, and then I would immediately go onto the counter and begin to help guests who had been waiting in line or had questions or problems and they needed my assistance. Now, some of those guests would need something simple like selling tickets or wanting to know where the closest bathroom is, but some of them had issues like they had purchased a ticket for a family member 3 years ago that is now deceased and wanted to know their options with it. So a lot of it was just problem solving and using the resources that were given to me to help the guests. I would also spend a little bit of time out in the Downtown Disney Promenade as a greeter, and there are there's 4 locations throughout the Downtown Disney Promenade where we would help, and in that role we're there to help guests with any directions or restaurant questions, any Disney questions, or local Orlando area kind of concerns or problems that they needed help with.
What skills and knowledge have you gained through this experience?
Well, a lot of my internship, all of my internship was dealing with people, whether they were my co-cast members or the guests that I would help on a daily basis. So I would say 100% it helped improve my communication skills. I definitely, in every situation, I had to listen to the guests and find out what they were really asking me to do for them. I would have to know my resources which ended up being knowing all of the Walt Disney World property and every kind of service that was provided to the guest. And I also had to really work on my critical thinking and problem skills. So I would say by far the 3 that I most improved were listening, communication, and problem solving.
Tell me about the most enjoyable experience you've had and the most disappointing or challenging experience you've had.
Sure. Well, dealing with people, as I'm sure you know, allows for a lot of interesting situations to occur. The best situation that I had by far was I was out greeting in the promenade one night, and a young girl, her name was Ava, she was 4 years old, came up to me and she started asking me questions about what I did for Walt Disney World and what was my job to be standing outside for so long. And I told her that I was here to welcome all of the guests to the Walt Disney World Resort and ask if they had any questions about anything or if I could help them in any way. So she asked me if she could help me greet all of the guests of the Walt Disney World Resort, and I said of course. So she stood next to me and just helped me wave to all of the guests as they entered the Downtown Disney Promenade. And after standing with me for about 10 minutes, she ran away for a few minutes with her father into a store and then trickled back out, and she had purchased huge Mickey gloves, the big white hands that Mickey wears, and she said, well, these will help us greet everyone as they walk by. And so we waved to everyone as they came by. She tried to answer questions like, where's the closest bathroom? And so getting to work with her was an awesome experience. She ended up asking me how she one day could work for the Walt Disney Company, and it was so great being able to share my passion for helping people and giving great customer service with a girl who was only 4 years old. And she ended up telling her parents in front of me that she one day wanted to be like Miss Jackie and work for the Walt Disney World Company, which is an amazing experience to have to share that conversation with not only another person but someone who was 4. It was awesome. And then my worst guest situation was a situation that regarded something that Walt Disney World is currently dealing with pretty heavily. We have a large amount of people who are unauthorized ticket sellers, which means that they purchase used tickets from guests who have already experienced their vacations at Walt Disney World and try to modify them and sell them to guests who are just arriving for their vacations, and they disguise themselves as Walt Disney cast members to try to sell them to the guests. Now the guests who are purchasing these tickets, the new ones arriving, don't realize that they're already used and that there's no value left on the ticket, so they end up spending anywhere from, depending on what the ticket is, anywhere from $90 to $600 on a pass, arriving at the gates at the Magic Kingdom or one of the theme parks and finding out that the tickets that they purchased are absolutely no good. In most cases, they have paid for cash, so there's no way that we can help them besides have them go back to the store that they saw on the drive from the airport and try to get their money back. Specifically, this one guest I had approached my window and asked me if I could verify that the tickets he had were still good, and that's something we do. So I was like, of course, sir, no problem. Could I just see your photo ID? So he handed me his photo ID, and I swiped one of the tickets, and it immediately popped up with a security tag number, which means that there was some kind of fraudulent activity related to this ticket. So I had to kind of escape from the guest, walk away from him without letting him know that something was wrong, which was a really hard challenge for me because everything I do is usually written all over my face. But I told him I was having some computer difficulty and I'd be right back. And I walked over to our backstage phone and had to call security, and they informed me that I should also call 911 Orange County to have them dispatch a unit also. So I knew that this was a serious situation. So I went back to the guest and I told him that help was on the way to help my situation, and if you could just hang tight for a few minutes, that'd be great. And then, so in that time, the guest knew that those tickets that he had were no good, and he knew that I had his photo ID, and in the meantime, he had also slipped me the credit card that he had used to purchase them, I think trying to prove to me that it was an almost legitimate transaction. And it was really uncomfortable because I was extremely nervous that this man was going to be really upset with me. And then when he ended up finding out that I had called security to come deal with him, because we're not allowed to exchange anymore after that once there's a security code, he was banging on the window, throwing things, yelling at me, screaming at me. And it was a really uncomfortable situation because generally I like to help people as much as I can. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do to help this guest. It was actually security who had to help him. It ended up being that he was one of the ticket scammers and that he was trying to just swing by my window and see that they were good so that he could sell it to a family that he was with. He ended up I didn't realize this because I had gone on break, but I came back later and forgotten about it. The next day my leader told me that he was arrested and they went through his information at his travel agency, and that he was a legitimate seller. So it was a good situation because it taught me a lot about communication and keeping calm and partnering up with my